Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the last session, we looked at three senses in which reason is necessary. And we also said that although reason is necessary in all these three senses, it is not self-sufficient. So Imam Razi in this last passage, what he's trying to establish is the fact that reason is not self-sufficient. Even though reason is necessary, it is not self-sufficient, and he builds an argument for that. And we are going to look at his argument today. Why reason is, although reason is necessary, it is not self-sufficient. So reason is necessary, as we saw last time, but it is not self-sufficient. Although reason is not self-sufficient, it does point towards. So we know through reason that it is not self-sufficient in the first place. So we know through reason. We know through reason itself. We know through reason itself that it is not self-sufficient. And reason itself point towards other sources which combined with reason are self-sufficient or near self-sufficient for the sort of knowledge which is required in metaphysical matters, for example, in the matters of ultimate truth, for example. So reason is not self-sufficient. Not self-sufficient in generally for any knowledge. It requires other sources. For example, even in ordinary knowledge, this worldly knowledge, it requires senses. It requires intuition. It requires background knowledge. Background taken for granted knowledge, for example. And reason is not self-sufficient specifically in metaphysical matters. And this is what concerns us here mainly. Matter with which related to the ultimate truth. ultimate truth, whether that truth is related to the nature of this universe or related to the destiny of human beings, their ultimate end, the possibility of salvation, things like that. So it's not self-sufficient. But as we said, even though it's not self-sufficient, it itself points towards other sources. And Imam Razi here, from the fact that reason is not self-sufficient, he establishes the need for guidance. And that guidance is not provided by reason, although it helps in that. But reason on its own cannot provide that guidance, and reason accepts that. Sound reason accepts that. From there, we establish the need for guidance. And since within ourselves we don't see any self-sufficient faculties, to guide us beyond reason, then it seems like we are totally reliant on the destiny or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our terminology. So that's Imam Razi's argument. And the argument is two-pronged. On the one hand, we need guidance. We need, and reason realizes that. Reason itself long for needs. Long for and needs to access the ultimate truth. By its very nature. So it is in nature of the reason that it longs for that ultimate truth. It wants to know that truth, but it realizes that on its own it cannot get to that truth. That is, it's not self-sufficient. So it recognizes the need. But it cannot. And then it points towards other possible means. It finds itself helpless. So it relies on the reality itself. It totally surrenders itself to that reality. And that's what guidance is. And this strategy is, in a sense, very similar to what Kant says in Critique of Pure Reason. Even though from those premises Kant drives wrong conclusion, his premises are similar to what Imam Razi is saying here. So what Kant says is that, in Critique of Pure Reason, Kant says that our reason has this peculiar fate. Our reason has, let me write it, our reason has this peculiar fate. And what's that fate? That with reference to one class of knowledge, one class of knowledge, meaning metaphysical knowledge or knowledge regarding ultimate truths, one class of knowledge that is metaphysical. Truths, it has this peculiar fate. And what is that fate? It is always troubled with question which cannot be ignored. So that's what we said about it longs to answer those questions. So it raises those questions. It raises those questions. The question of the creation of this universe, the creator, the question of the freedom, the question of soul, and question of salvation. The sort of questions which metaphysics and religions raise. Reason itself raises those questions. So that's what its peculiar fate is, that it raises those questions. It wants to answer those questions. It longs to find a solution for those questions, but and because they spring from the very nature of it, so those questions are not alien to reason. Those questions stem from its very nature. They stem from its very nature, because nature of reason is to long for. Nature of reason is to long for complete solution, complete truth. And if you look at the processes of reason, for example, inference, and that's the difference between necessary reason and sufficient reason, is it moves from one premise to another, and it will only stop when the chain is complete. But since the chain never completes in this contingent world, it goes beyond that, where reason doesn't have any access. It has this peculiar fate that by its very nature it wants to keep going, but due to its limit it has to stop. So it raises those questions which it cannot answer. So it is always troubled with questions which cannot be ignored, but because they spring from its very nature, but which cannot be answered because they transcend the power of reason. They transcend the power of reason. So this is the dilemma. Reason by its very nature raises questions, certain questions, because its nature is to stop only when the solution is complete, when the answer is complete. So it raises those questions, but answers of those questions transcend the power of human reason. Obviously, we are always talking about human reason. Transcend. And that's Imam Razi's premise too. Even though the answers are different, Kant says that, despite that we can find another ways, like through practical reason and aesthetic reason, to find those answers which are not available to theoretical reason. But Imam Razi from this drives the question, concludes the need, not just need, but necessity of guidance. So the premise and the basic premises of Kant and Imam Razi are very similar here, but the answers are hugely different, obviously. So this is the argument that reason raises certain question by its very nature, which it cannot answer because it transcends its power. And from there, Imam Razi concludes the need for and the necessity of guidance from sources beyond human reason, because human reason is powerless to fulfill its basic fundamental need. Once we have understood that argument, it's easy to follow this. So Imam Razi said, Al-uqulu mustariba wal-haqqu sab. So the reason is discontented, uncontent, troubled. Why it is troubled? Why is discontented? Because it raises certain questions which it cannot answer. It needs the answer for certain questions it cannot answer. It longs for certain questions which it cannot answer. And why that? Because wal-haqqu sab, because the ultimate truth transcends human reason. That's what he's saying here. So al-uqulu mustariba, the reason is discontented. Why? Because it longs to answer questions it itself raises, and it needs answers for them, those questions. But those answers transcend its power, its powers. And they transcend its powers because the ultimate truth is al-haqqu sabun. The ultimate truth is very difficult for human reason. Sab. That is, it transcends human reason, or at least its full nature. So human reason on its own is not self-sufficient to grasp this ultimate truth, unless this truth itself reveals itself to human being. And that's Imam Razi's speech. So al-uqulu mustariba wal-haqqu sab. And then he goes on to explain a bit more why the ultimate truth is I mean, the basic reason it's the ultimate truth is transcends human reason, and is some of its expressions are mentioned in the next line. So, العقول مضطربة والحق صعب والأفكار مختلطة والأفكار مختلطة. And that's one manifestation of how the truth, the ultimate truth is. Very difficult. الأفكار مختلطة. So الحق صعب. This the ultimate truth is very difficult, and this difficulty is explained in this next sentence. That الأفكار مختلطة. So al-afkar means opinions about the ultimate truths. So afkar can mean opinions, theories, philosophies about this. There are a variety of views about what is the ultimate truth. And in those views, truth and falsehood is mixed in such a way that it's hard to differentiate between true and false. And that's what ikhtilat mean. So, like in the language of tasawwuf, we say taqleel. One of the principles of tasawwuf is to reduce your mixing up with people. So, taqleel killat ikhtilat ma'al anam. So ikhtilat in Arabic language, ikhtilat mean ikhtalat. Mean when two or more than two things are mixed up in such a way that it is hard to differentiate one from the other. And here, obviously, we are talking about the truth and falsehood. So these philosophies, they are mixed with each other as well as in them, and that's the main point. Truth and falsehoods are mixed in such a way that it's hard to differentiate truth from falsehood. And that's one of the reasons why the ultimate truth is difficult. And truth is there in those opinions and views and philosophies, even if those are misguided philosophies, because at the end of the day, according to Islamic view anyway, the messengers came with the ultimate truth to all the nations and all the cultures. So all the nations have the basic truth, but they have mixed up with falsehood. And they have rearranged them in a way which is transgression against the truth. So that's why whenever Islam came, it comes as a reminder, because people already have truth, really. Because all the people are the descendants of Adam alayhi salam. But those in opinions, truth and falsehood are mixed in such a way that it's hard to differentiate on its own. So that's why the messengers came and they remind people of what is true. And that's why they use a kihim. That one of the meaning of tazkiyah, purification, is. So our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is also a mujaddid of the millat of Ibrahim, his father Ibrahim alayhi salam. So Meccan Arabs, Quraysh, they were the descendants of Ibrahim alayhi salam. They had the truth, but they had mixed up with other nonsense. So the Prophet came for their purification, in the purifications of their views, so reminding them. So that's why, they used to do Hajj, and Islam kept the Hajj because it's the origin of Hajj is Abrahamic. So that's why Islam kept it. But what it did is it purified that Hajj, for example, from the impurities which were mixed up throughout the history due to different reasons. So ikhtilat mean ikhtalata yakhtalit. So the truth is there among the viewpoint and philosophies and ideologies. Even the worst ideology, even there is truth in capitalism, truth in communism, truth in liberalism, even though we reject them as a whole fully, because human beings don't have anything else. The truth came from the prophets, and they just reinterpreted that truth in a way which was not according to the nature of that truth. So that's what zulm is. People don't create anything, they just transgress. And zulm is wad'u shay fi ghayri mahalli, to put something where it doesn't belong. So everything belongs somewhere, but if you put it somewhere else, then it belongs, then it becomes falsehood. So they are mixed up with each other in such a way that truth, it's hard to differentiate truth from the falsehood. And that's what ikhtilat mean, like an ikhtilat. This word is used, we use in Urdu and Persian, for example, like makhluk talim means co-education, where mixed females and males mixed up. Ikhtilat with people means, mixing up with people, meeting up with them, and things like that. So a reason is discontented, because it longs for something which it cannot reach, because the destination is very difficult, Saab, because it transcends the destination, human reason. From there we need from where we conclude the need for the guidance from the ultimate reality, the ultimate truth, the Al-Haq, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. So that's how Imam Razi establishes the need for guidance. That's the argument. That's the train of thought where it's being pursued in this paragraph. So al-uqulu mustaribatun wal-haqqu sals. People's reasons are discontented. People are discontented because they long for the truth, but they can't reach that truth because wal-haqqu sabad, that truth is difficult, very difficult. And one of the reasons for difficulty is, even though there are philosophies, there are religions, there are metaphysics which contain kernel of that truth or the essence of that truth, they are mixed up, mukhtalita, mixed up with untrue, and so they're mixed up in such a way that in them falsehood and truth is mixed up in such a way that it is hard to differentiate truth from the falsehood. And that's why walam yaslam min al-ghalati illa lakum. That's why there are only very few people who get the truth and are safe from the fundamental error. And from this, Imam Razi conclude that fawajaba. So wajabin So it follows out of necessity that an al-hidayah, the guidance, wa idrak al-haq, the cognition of the ultimate truth, is not possible by reason on its own. La yakunu illa bi'anas. So we need the help of the reality itself, the ultimate reality itself, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala itself, and His guidance. Wa hidayati wa irshadi. So that's the full argument, at least part of it. So inshallah, probably we need another session, and then we will conclude this. But we have been able to get to the basic argument anyway. So I'll see you in the next session.